Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Autumn Conversation. Today's topic is Mental Health is Wealth, reframing how we prioritize our mental well-being. My name is Angela Ng. I am a senior lecturer at SIT, currently a doctoral researcher in emotional science, and I founded ANtrepod, which is a learning and development consultancy that specializes in training people to use design thinking framework for innovative and well-being solutions for both organizations and individuals. Today, I'm very honored to be invited by Autumn to be here. Autumn is a digital platform that focuses on bringing not just financial wellness, but also overall health and lifestyle solutions to everyone in planning for our future. In line with World Mental Health Month, I'm here to moderate the discussion on mental health and how we can proactively prioritize our well-being. Let me start by introducing our panelists for this topic today. First, we have Nav. She is an EMDR psychotherapist, professional counselor, and founder of Heal with Nav. Next up, we have Mike. Mike is no stranger to the audience of this platform. He is the CEO of Autumn. Prior to founding Autumn, Mike was one of the masterminds behind Boundless, an AI-powered health coaching technology platform that aims to help people find happiness. Our third panelist is Erin. Erin is a mindfulness coach and founder of Mindful Moments. Prior to becoming a mindfulness coach, Erin was in corporate communications. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to direct my first question to Erin. Erin, it is a huge career switch going from corporate communications to being a mindfulness coach. Can you share with us your journey and what propels you to choose mindfulness as your new specialization?
Sure. Thank you, Angela. Yes, so corporate communications was indeed very different from what I'm doing now as a mindfulness coach. And I had spent about 10 years in this industry. And throughout the whole decade, I was constantly burnt out. I coined myself the burnout queen because I would go into a job, I would totally exhaust myself, I would break down, I would throw in the letter, quit, and then find another job just to repeat the whole cycle again. So throughout this period of time, my health really suffered, not just my physical health, but also my mental health, emotional health. And I remember my last public relations stint was in China, in Beijing. And that was when, at the brink of another breakdown, I decided that, this is it. I have to really step back and start paying attention to myself. And that's basically what I did. And upon a friend's recommendation, I went for my first meditation retreat, a 10-day meditation retreat. And that changed my, there was a huge shift in me in how I related with myself, with the stresses in my life. And that's when I started exploring meditation, mindfulness. So I decided I really wanted to share what I practice. And that's where I am right now as a mindfulness coach and teacher. Yeah.
Hey, wow. So it really take a burnout and a huge meltdown for you to realize that mindfulness is really important, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I see. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Mike, I've noticed that the topic of wellness is constantly reflected in your business ventures. Can you share with the audience how did the subject of mental health and wellness become so important for you?
Yes, thank you for the question. I was very lucky to be born into a family which really found that mental well-being, health, happiness, mindfulness were really important. I learned to meditate about the age of 10 through my parents, and have been working on mindfulness pretty much my whole life. My family is very much into practical philosophy. And by practical philosophy, I mean the love of wisdom, and in particular, that wisdom which leads to lasting happiness. So my entire bringing is about thinking about ways to find meaningful, lasting happiness, not just the short-term hit, but long-term And so mindfulness and meditation has a big part to play in that. And my entire career has been a journey along that path.
I see. Okay, so this is really interesting to find long-term happiness. Do you think you have the solution for our audience today?
I don't have a solution. I'm not Jesus. I'm not the Messiah. But what I do have is some experience in the kinds of things that I've found to bring happiness in the long term. I have been working in this space for quite a while, so I'm familiar with a lot of the research, which can provide some signposts as to where people can find lasting happiness, the things to avoid, which definitely get in the way. So I can provide these kinds of things for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think as the panelists share the experience, there's a lot to learn from and a lot of information to draw from as well. And everyone is different on this topic of mental health, right? So everyone have to kind of find what suits each and individual that will make it work for us. Now, like what Erin has mentioned, it really took like a huge burnout and a meltdown for her to realize that, wellness, mental health is important. And I think in our day-to-day, we have encountered many people who actually knows that well-being is important, but are constantly caught up in, the multiple roles and responsibilities that we have in our life. Constantly time short, constantly saying that, oh, I don't have time to, take care of this. I don't have time to prioritize my own well-being. I don't have time for meditation or mindfulness practice. So can you share some advice on how we can really prioritize our well-being before we reach like the burnout stage?
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for this question, because it's extremely important to, understand how we prioritize. So I'll just bring you to a basic question, which is, we prioritize something if we feel it's important to us. We don't prioritize if it is not important to us. When we understand the importance of mental health, how it affects our thoughts, emotions, behavior, and how we show up in our life in every aspect, whether it's relationship, it's finances, it's physical health. If we understand the root of every issue is the psychological state of our well-being, we will give it more importance, we will give it the due credit to it. Coming to your question, how we can do it, how we can prioritize. So we have to understand that there is no cookie cutter approach. There is no one size fits all, as you rightly mentioned, Angela. Tending to your mental health needs, tending to your own mental health is actually, you have to identify your own unique needs, and then developing practices and habits to honor them. For example, someone may need more of physical exercise. Someone may need more time out. Someone may need more time for medication and practices like that. So we have to identify what is my need, and accordingly, because, a recent study came out, well, I don't know whether you got a chance to see that in State Times 2 days back. It's the study by Institute of Mental Health, which says the societal cost of 6 common mental health disorders here in Singapore is estimated at 1.7 billion per year, $1.7 billion per year. That's a huge cost. And that's just the societal cost. Think about the individual cost to the person, loss of relationships, loss of work, loss of self-esteem, confidence. So it all boils down to choices, what we want to do. But having said that, if you ask me one tip, how we can do that is be proactive with your mental health.
Okay, thank you, Nav. So being proactive, I think, something that we really need to really force ourselves, put aside time, to actually take care of our mental well-being. Erin, as a mindfulness coach, do you have kind of like a tip for our audiences on how to actually, for a novice person who actually have never meditated before? It's very difficult to sit quietly and just contemplate or even just focus on the breathing, right? So do you have a tip for our audience how to do it in an easy way, especially for those who are starting out?
Well, thank you, Angela. And first of all, I would just like to put it out there and say that mindfulness is not easy. It is simple. It is really simple to understand. We just need to know where our attention is and how to use our attention. But it's not easy because we just live in this very distracted, fragmented world. We are multitasking all the time. And our attention nowadays is very much thrown outwards, right? We look at our phones, we look at other people, but we never look inside at ourselves, and we don't understand what's happening inside within the body, within the mind. And what I noticed personally when I made this shift is that when I started to pay attention to myself, then that's when change happens. Change happens when there is awareness, right? So for a novice, I would say that, we have this notion that mindfulness or meditation is something, it's like this huge endeavor. Oh, I have to make time, I have to make space for it. And in a way, it is true. We do have to. But for a start, it's not that difficult to integrate this into the day-to-day awareness of life. So when we go about our day-to-day routines, something as simple as eating, like how did we have our breakfast this morning? Were we having our breakfast and typing on our laptops at the same time, replying an email, or looking at our phone at the same time? Can we just be present with the experience of eating, opening our senses to the food, and just do one thing at a time? So for a start, I think it's really important to understand that everyone can get started with mindfulness, and we can just do something as simple as take a 1-minute pause in the middle of each day, or to work this into our day-to-day routine. That would be a good start. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think that's very great advice and very easy tip to practice, right? Because it's about paying attention to what we are actually doing. It's not like, have to really stop and go away for a 10 days meditation retreat. It doesn't have to be that big. It's just in our day-to-day life, pay attention to what we are doing and do one thing at a time. I think that is really something that we need to remind ourselves, because like you rightly mentioned, we constantly juggling so many things and get distracted and, doing things halfway and then move on and then forget about it. Mike, since you have started meditation since the age of 10 years old, can you then share with us, like as a 10-year-old, do you remember what are the tips that you have to even advise young children, young kids or parents to actually meditate or practice mindfulness in the family?
Yeah. I loved Erin's tip about single-pointed attention. Just paying attention to one thing at a time, I think is a great practice, and particularly for children. And it's a really good way of turning the attention outwards and getting it out of the thoughts and the being so involved in your own ego. And so turning the attention outwards, turning it to like a very fine attention to detail, and the sensory input for children in particular is really good. I also learnt music at a very young age, and learning musical instrument I think is a really good way to identify when you're not paying attention, because it's immediately apparent when your attention slips and the sound becomes awful. So as a practice, for example, there's one way of helping children practice putting the attention to one thing at a time, and to do that with repetition, which in a way is a kind of meditation. Like meditation is about bringing the attention back very gently to the thing that you're paying attention to, and just practicing keeping that attention there, making it a choice. So there are various activities you can do with children which will kind of train the brain to be able to do this, to find this a much more normal activity. And whether it's music or whether it's doing things with your children and encouraging them to really engage with the senses, turn the attention outwards, observe the world. These sorts of things will be very helpful.
So, because you have practiced meditation and mindfulness so much longer than most of us do, because most of us have only heard of this concept of mindfulness maybe in the last few years. Do you think that actually helps you to cope as a busy entrepreneur? I'm sure your schedule is really packed. Is that mindfulness coming into play after so many years of practices?
Mindfulness has had a huge impact on my life, a hugely beneficial impact on my life. It's difficult for me to say or imagine what it would be like without it, because it's always been part of it. The practice suggested by Erin about just pausing for a minute during the day is one example of something that is habitual for me. This kind of thing, just between activities, just take a breath, pause for a minute, 30 seconds, a minute.
Okay.
One thing I find useful is giving up in that minute all of the stuff that wasn't completed, all of the emotional stuff, all of the ideas about the previous activity, and just put it down. Leave it with that activity. Give yourself a breath and give yourself the space, the mental, emotional space to move on and pay attention to the next thing. And so having this practice makes sure that by the end of the day, the mind isn't overwhelmed with carrying around the 20 different things that you had been working on during the day. You're only paying attention to the thing that you're doing at that moment. And all of the emotional load, of course, is much less as well. So I think this is the first and foremost, the most important thing to practice during the day. Find that space, create that space. Practice putting down the activity that you're engaged with previously, and just pay attention to what you're doing now. Yeah.
So I'm sure your schedule is really packed. So let's say you want to take a minute for yourself and someone comes knocking on your door, asking you for advice, needing that time from you, because there are thousands of people who actually need attention from you, right? So how do you say no to people who want more time with you, who are going to go into your schedule for well-being?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very, very difficult to stop the deluge. It takes work. There's a lot of people that I'm responsible to, a lot of people I'm trying to help. And so first and foremost, just make sure that people are aware when they are asking for help. Is this something they really need help with? Is this something that they need to come to me with? So just get them to take responsibility for that first. Secondly, there's a question about how much does this need from me? Is this something that I'm the best person to answer? Is there someone else who would be better placed to respond to this, to delegate to? Thirdly, what do I have to drop in order to answer this request? So what am I going to have to give up? Sometimes it's about being aware of why do I want to do this? Why do I want to respond? So sometimes people ask me to do things and there's an emotional response. Yeah, I want to do this. Like, well, I think, why do I want to do this? What need in me is this meeting that causes an emotional response? And is this really something that I should be doing? And so just having a bit of self-awareness there is really useful. So these are the kinds of considerations that come in. Otherwise, I think the main thing is just giving up the fear that I don't have enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. Just give this up and meet the request where it is and to give what I can.
Okay, great. So really being in the moment, at that moment, check in with yourself, whether you have the capacity to say yes or to say no, and be authentic in that sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Nav, I know you are a busy mom juggling, home-based learning now at home and also your work. Do you have some advice for us how to really juggle all these things in terms of saying no, opening our schedule to everyone?
Yeah, I'm totally with Mike, how he was, explaining the thing. You have to take a pause. So it's you who set the tone for your relationships and how people draw from you. So you set the tone for that. And that starts with your own self. You have to have that connection and attunement with yourself first, and then you can set that tone for others. So if I'm attuned to my own needs, if I have a good connection with myself, I would know what I need. And then I would not hesitate for standing up for myself and asking for it and saying no when I really want to say no about it and not say yes, right? So that's what we do, prioritizing our needs with others, but again, having that connection with self first and attunement with self.
So it is really about being firm with the boundaries, right? Because I know you are very good with your schedule when you say this block of time is my me time, no turning on of laptops, you actually really stick to it. Whereas most of us, sometimes we can't resist the temptation to, look into our email and then start answering email and start getting caught up at work all over again, right? So, Mike, there is a question that I always like to ask CEOs. Have you ever encountered someone who's been very emotional at work, coming to you crying, really depressed? How do you handle such situation?
Yeah, particularly this year, we've had a few situations, and one in mind, one in particular that comes to mind is the situation in India when COVID got particularly bad there. We have a number of Indians on my team with family and friends back in India, and due to the travel restrictions, it was very difficult for them to leave Singapore and go back to India. And so it was extremely stressful, this feeling of wanting to help, wanting to support family and friends, wanting to be there, but unable to be there. And yeah, came into work one day, find one of my colleagues crying at their desk. And yeah, I think first and foremost is empathy. Connect with the person, really understand what they're going through, listen, and listen and give space. I think listening goes a long way to helping someone feel supported, feel cared for in that moment. And then it's a matter of addressing whatever the need is in that moment. What can we do in that moment to help the person? And then once that moment has passed, then look at what can we do structurally to try and to improve the situation so this doesn't happen again, or the person doesn't get to this state again. Obviously, with COVID, it's a bit difficult to do that. But on the back of that particular incident, for example, we set up a weekly call. Once a week, it was an all hands, open call, no obligation to join, but just for an opportunity for people to connect, to share the things they're struggling with, to share the things that they're finding difficult, to share their emotions, and just to talk it out once a week. And we did that for a few months, and a lot of people found that very helpful. It's really good just to connect. Just talking about it made a big difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That question.
Yeah, I think definitely the empathy, the understanding of the importance of emotional wellness is definitely an important leadership skills this day. Erin, when you were facing your burnout back in Beijing, China, during your corporate communications day, were you able to express that in the office? Do you feel that the office environment was supportive of you coping with all those difficulties?
Well, that was quite a number of years back when there wasn't so much of a focus on mental health at the workplace. I think so. Naturally, all of us, we felt that it wasn't perhaps a good decision to show any signs of emotions that may be construed as a weakness or just being vulnerable at the workplace. So definitely, and especially in the work of public relations or corporate communications, you deal a lot with crisis. And when a crisis arrives, and we all just automatically go into this problem-solving mode. I have to solve the problem as rationally, as logically, as efficiently as possible. And when we're in that kind of headspace, a lot of times we end up not paying attention to our emotional needs, right? So not just of our clients, the people we're working with, but also ourselves as we're working through the problem solving. So I think if I had the chance to know mindfulness then and to bring it into the workplace in that context of the work, it's going to be difficult. It's really not easy, but it's going to be a moment by moment practice. So sometimes we can't pause, right? Especially in such a fast-paced environment. When a crisis comes, we just have to get it resolved. But what is a good underlying support for the whole process of problem solving is mindful awareness of the self. So what am I experiencing in each moment? Whether we're experiencing high or lows, what's happening, what thoughts are we having, what emotions are we experiencing? Is the body sending us some signals that we should maybe pause for a while? And this kind of mindful awareness is very helpful in allowing us in each moment to always bring ourselves back to a state of better balance. And this can often, result in us making a wiser decisions rather than being reactive about it. So I think this is something that's really overlooked at the workplace, and it's not being addressed enough. Yeah.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Erin, for sharing that. Now, like Erin has so rightfully pointed out that, actually in corporate world, many of us focus so much on professionalism as being rational. So being emotional is seen as not so professional. So I believe actually prior to COVID, there were already many hidden mental health issues in the workplace. What are some of these that you have observed, and can you share more about your thoughts on that area?
Yeah. So basically, prior to COVID and now also, there's an increase in mental health issues. So what I have observed is burnout, prolonged chronic toxic stress, because there's no time gap between, there's infringement of boundaries. There's no work-life balance. So because of that, people are having that kind of constraint. They're not able to have that kind of freedom to themselves. So burnout is one thing, and there is anger management issues, alcohol dependence. We want some kind of leisure. We are not going out. We are in isolation. So those kind of things. And apart from that, what I have noticed, the latest trend is languishing. The languishing means, there's this feeling of stagnation.
Yes.
There's no purpose in my life. I'm not moving forward. I'm just stuck in that routine. So what I have observed in my clinical experience, people coming out for languishing, I do not have purpose in my life. There's self-esteem issues, confidence issues, anger management, alcohol dependence, extreme irritability, and knee-jerk reactions. Yes, actually, knee-jerk reactions, and then they're coming for that. And these are things, which have which are deep-rooted issues, which have deep-rooted causes. They actually, they actually are how we believe about ourselves, about world, and about our workplace. So there's so many things which are playing under it. There's a stream of it. So we have to identify the root cause of it. So we say that in therapy, change the root to change the fruit. So we have to address the root cause in order to get the outcome changed.
So how do we even identify that we have the wrong fruit? How do we identify that we are actually suffering from chronic of toxic stress? That's the words that you have used.
Yes. Thank you for asking that, because sometimes people are not even aware of it. People are not even aware of it, that they are going through languishing. They are having that chronic toxic stress. So the first measure is it's affecting your day-to-day functioning. You are losing your sense of purpose. There is irritability, there is anger, exaggerated responses. And specifically, if you talk with your friends and family, they will be able to point out that there is change in your behavior. And also you will lose interest in the activities which you previously would usually enjoy. You will lose interest in socialization. You will lose interest in your work. There is no motivation. So there is no feeling of getting up. Hey, I'm getting up in the morning and going for work. So there's no motivation. So these are the trigger, these are the red flags which you can look for in terms of mental well-being.
But we go through, the emotional high and lows in the course of the day. There are times that we don't feel motivated, and there are times. So is there a duration to benchmark to know when should we really seek help, and that is a real red flag, instead of reacting to every little sign?
Yeah. So when it starts affecting your day-to-day living, that's the major criteria. If it starts affecting your day-to-day functioning, this is something which needs to be addressed. Definitely needs to be addressed. We are not talking about normal waves and cycles which happens in human beings. Emotional waves come and goes, but definitely we're talking about prolonged stress. And when it starts affecting your day-to-day functioning and you're not able to give your 100% to your job.
I see. Okay. So these are the red flags to be mindful of, that is really starting to change our day to our ability to cope with our days to day. So that is a real red flag that we should look into. I think taking advice from people around us, that is also actually a very good tip, right? Because sometimes we tend to just want to shut ourselves up and ignore everybody else, and it just adds. We just feel that it adds to the stress, but actually having people giving us that feedback is important. Mike, do you have any advice to fellow management how to actually build a culture that is more emotionally healthy in the workplace?
Wow, that's a big question. So first of all, I think it needs to start from respect, and respect that everyone who's coming to the workplace is a human being, and they have value as a human being beyond just the ability to do work. So that's first and foremost. I'm not an organizational psychologist, so preface anything I have to say on this. My preference is to build organizations where everyone has the opportunity to find meaning and purpose and fulfillment at work. Work is an opportunity for people to use their own talents and abilities and find joy in doing this and grow through that process. And it's only when you have this kind of culture, this kind of mindset, that you have an organization which is really sustainable. Because when people are working in this kind of way, where they can find flow on a regular basis, do they have access to a really deep well of energy to keep going even when things are tough? Which, when you're building a startup, is most of the time. There's a lot of stuff on fire. There's always 2,000 things to do and not enough people. So having access to that motivational energy really does need to come from being connected to what you love, what brings you joy, what brings you a sense of meaning and purpose in life. And to create an organization where people can connect with that, you have to be aware of, for each of your individual staff, what their needs are, their individual needs, and what their talents are, and what their aspirations are, and where they want to go in life, and what's important to them. And you need to create a way of working where all of that is taken into account. And so you assign work based on, yes, the skills and abilities, but also aligned to where they want their career to go and the kind of person they want to become. I think that would be the starting point. It's a much larger discussion.
Yeah, but I think this is such a great advice, because many management are so focused on profitability. They forgot that they are actually running a team of people. So I really love what you say, that for a start, treat the people who comes to work as human beings, right? And it's not just a productivity line, a machine, or a robot that, you know, if they have a down day, you can just kind of fix it this way and then or discard it. It's a human life. So if we have that basic respect for each and every human life, you know, we take the wholesale of emotional problems, mental issues, physical issues that all comes with it. So thank you for sharing your experience. I think it's really, really great advice. In a recent HSBC Life Plus Factor study conducted with around 10,000 participants across a few countries that include Singapore, UK, Hong Kong, and mainland China, it has been observed that there were significant differences in the level of mental well-being and physical fitness between those who have long-term financial planning in place and those who do not. The study shows that 73% of those who review their financial plans at least once a year have average or above average mental health. A significant of 77% of those who have comprehensive retirement plan, they tend to have average or above average mental health. Nav, can you comment and explain this relationship between our physical, financial, and mental health? How are they related?
Thank you, Angela, because this is so important. Because while physical and financial health are outcomes, mental health is the root cause. You know, it's the cause, as I mentioned earlier. So whether it is obsession or neglect of physical health or financial health, it all comes from deeper beliefs and the traumas and what our conditioning is, you know, what our brains are wired for. Maybe it's childhood issues, or maybe it's an adulthood trauma, whatever it is. So whether it is an obsession or neglect of your physical health or your financial well-being, it's coming from deep-rooted beliefs about self, world, and others. So an emotionally healthy person would be able to take fair and objective decisions in their life, you know, and the accumulation of such decisions has a better chance of resulting in better physical and mental, financial health. So I would say that it's all boils down to mental health. And yes, while physical and mental health, financial health are outcomes, mental health is the root cause of everything.
Okay, so if we are mentally healthy, likely we will have better physical health, better financial health as well. But we so often just blindly chase after good financial health and physical health, right? And we can't over-invest in that area and forget to take care of our emotional health, which then could also result in a burnout in our mental health.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. So again, it's obsession, right? It's obsession. Either I'm obsessed about my physical health and I'm into exercising, I'm into running, I'm into supplements, and I'm totally ignoring my emotional health. Your emotional health would scream. There are psychosomatic issues if you talk about physical health. We say his body keeps the score. Issues is in the tissues. So everything boils down to your body also. So it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. And whether I'm obsessed about achievements, whether I'm obsessed about my financial health, so that also comes from my belief that I have to chase this thing. I have to be on top of my game. If I'm not on top of my game, I'll be not there. So obsession and neglect are extreme ends of the spectrum. We have to have that balance where we have balance of physical, mental, and financial health, and which again boils down to, what are my beliefs, what is my wiring, how my brain is wired. Think about all these things.
Oh, I really love what you say, that balance, right? And striking that balance is really something that we need to put into practice, because when we strike the balance, we tend to swing from one extreme to the other until we really, really find that middle ground. Erin, what was it like for you when you decided to go for this big career switch? In terms of financial planning wise, what was on your mind, and what was the experience that you go through to take this big career switch at the sacrifice of, I assume, stability of income with the corporate communications job?
Yes, absolutely. So I was going through a bit of a struggle there, definitely, and especially when I had sort of accumulated a certain roadmap for myself in the corporate communications industry. I would be earning this much, I'll be in this particular position by this, and suddenly, everything just changed when I realized that my mental health could not support everything that I had been planning for. So I was very fortunate enough to, of course, have had pretty decent financial planning since in my early 20s. So by the time I reached my 30s, I was comfortable enough to to go for a more pragmatic approach and to find the balance that Nav was talking about. So I had actually chosen to step back to a part-time position in the company that I was working for, and using that additional time freed up to explore what I wanted to study. So yes, so definitely everything was a step back, but it was a step back for more balance, a more holistic approach. And I could, obviously find more time to pursue what I was really passionate about, to relook into my health, my physical health, my mental health. And this pragmatic approach allowed me to eat better, sleep better, and just take care of myself better. So I think I definitely agree that having that balance is important. And also Nav was also talking about that obsession, right? And a lot of times we just can't let go of a specific belief or a preconception that we have about our lives. And I think a lot of times we feel stuck because we believe we don't have the options, but actually we do. It's just a matter of, prioritizing on what you think is most important for you right now. And what I realized was most important for me then was my relationships with people. And I realized that, yes, I may be earning much less. I may not be as stable as before, but I do have the relationships around me to support my holistic health. And that was when I developed a totally new a worldview of how I could be thriving in this world. Yeah.
Oh, so I think that's really interesting insights, that we can actually thrive beyond financial, beyond accumulating financial wealth, right? Because there are so many areas that actually determines our well-being. So yeah, relationship is definitely one of them. In the corporate world, what I see was that, or even now, many people actually have worked in the same job or in the same industry for a long time, and like how Erin has rightly pointed out, no longer find fulfillment in their work, yet they are very afraid to let go because they think that it will come at the expense of a financial stability. Mike, from a CEO point of view, what kind of advice will you give people who are going through this, who kind of struggling with their work, they don't find fulfillment, they don't find purpose, they're burning out, yet they are still hanging on and not letting go?
Okay, it's kind of two parts to that question. I think Erin's answer was fantastic. It's a really good example of the kind of steps you need to take. So my advice to someone who is coming to me with this kind of problem would start from wanting to know why they feel their current job is not right for them. What needs are they not having met at their current workplace? Is this about the job, or is this more about them? And is there something they can do to change the way they think, the change the way they feel about their current job, so they can get more value out of it, and reconnect with that sense of meaning and purpose, which requires a bit of a conversation about personal awareness and getting into this what are the values, what are the needs of the person. So let's assume the job, for whatever reason, is no longer a good fit for the person, and they're looking for something else. So you need to identify, what are they looking for? What is missing? And obviously during COVID, a lot of people are very stressed about the economic situation, about their income, and so I think that people have been hesitating about changing jobs. They want a lot of certainty in their life. They want to control the things that they can control, because there's a lot of stuff that's completely out of our control. So what that's meant is people have stayed in jobs longer rather than looking for somewhere else. So now that things are kind of coming to the end of that, people are starting to consider, well, maybe I should change jobs. I am tired of restrictions. I'm tired of the habitual languishing. I think that's a really great word. And I'm looking for something fresh. So what is it that they really need? And put the finger on the why. And the 5 whys is a really good exercise just to get to the heart of that. So that's really interesting. Addressing the fears. Make sure you sort out a rainy day fund. You've got yourself in a financial situation, so you have a bit of a buffer. Get your support network ready. So engage your loved ones in this decision so that they understand why you're making the decision. They know there's going to be change. Change is going to involve stress. So get them involved. There'll be a support network. Make sure you have your physical routine in place. So good exercise, nutrition, sleep. These are very protective physical behaviors, protective of mental well-being. So make sure all of those habits are in place. And then at that point, you might be ready to start a new job. So I would say, like, there's a whole lead up of preparation. When you're ready to start considering a new job, like, find that new opportunity, make sure it's aligned to your values and your needs, and then focus on what's the opportunity to create that new potential. And I find for my previous roles where I have finished something and moved on to the next thing, there's always 20,000 different things you could do with your life. The question was what? And as you winnow through all the different options, eventually one becomes just so compellingly obvious, like, this is the right way to go. And the more that becomes real versus what you have now, it just becomes impossible to stay where you are, and moving to the next thing is inevitable. So that would be kind of the way I would approach it.
Yeah, I think great advice. The planning is really important, right? Because many people think that it's, again, like what Nav has mentioned, going from one extreme to the other. If I can't stay in this job, then I kind of just leave and then try to swing into another extreme, and then will find yourself getting stuck again if you are physically, mentally, emotionally actually not ready to take on some new challenges, because every changes is stressful. So I think the planning step by step, I think that's really great advice. Yes, Mike?
I was going to say, even worse is you see people leaving their job to run away from themselves. It's not about the job at all. And
Yes.
so, like, the first step is to be aware of this, have that self-awareness. Like, what exactly am I trying to get away from? If it's you, like, you moved to a new job, well, there you are still. So the problem is just going to be the same. I think this kind of echoes what Erin was talking about, the burnout queen, going from job to job, looking for that solution, but actually the problem was going with her, and there she was every time until he addressed the roots to get the different fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think great question that you have pointed out to ask ourselves, right? When we feel burnout, is it us or is it the job? I think that is a very good question to bear in mind. Is it us or is it the job? Because sometimes we confuse both, and again, is addressing something that we need to address internally, but with something that is on the outside, which is, in this case, is the job.
So yeah, when it comes to burnout, obviously Nav is the the expert here. One of the ways of looking at this is, particularly in the startup space, where do I get the energy to keep doing this work? And there are various sources of motivational energy. And on one end of the spectrum, you do it because you love it. And if you're doing it because you love it, then you have like this deep well, which is always full of energy, and you just keep drawing on this. In the middle, you've got it's aligned to your values. It's important. This is about creating justice for our customers. It's about protecting our customers from misinformation in the market or whatever. Often has a bunch of interesting values which give rise to a lot of energy to get stuff done, to serve our customers. And then at the far end of the spectrum, you've got things like fear. You can do work out of fear or a sense of duty. And like duty can keep you going, but only for so long. Like it's a very limited source of energy. And doing fear, okay, that'll get you to a deadline like at the end of the week, but you're exhausted by the end of it. So if you are using fear to motivate you to do stuff, like a fear of financial failure or the sense of duty, these sources of energy are very limited. You can't keep running on this. So you have to like move down the spectrum more towards this is aligned with your values, or it's something you love to find more energy so that you're not so burnt out. But I'm sure Nav has got a better answer than that.
I'm totally with you, Mike. I'm loving your answer. It was amazing. We have to know our whys. When our values are aligned and we are working in alignment with our passion, the work becomes play. We are no longer forcing ourselves to get up in the morning and do our work because it's so passionate. We are so passionate about it. And probably, when I talk to my children and my husband, I can go nights, studying about trauma because I love working with trauma clients. So it's all about passion. Where do you draw your energy from? Fear definitely is a limited fuel if you talk in terms of energy. Yes. So absolutely beautiful answer. I was loving it when you were explaining it. It's the way it is. So what it all boils down to, Angela, is, we have to have that conversation, that difficult conversation with ourselves. Sit down, go inwards, be mindful, have that difficult conversation with yourself, reflect on it. And only when you reflect on it, you will get to that root cause from where you can change the root and get to the new fruit.
Yeah. But I also have met people who come to me to say that I know what I love to do. I love to play music. But playing music can't make me a decent income to support the family. So what do we do when we face with such situation?
Okay. Again, strike a balance. You may not be using music to earn money, but nobody is stopping you to, enjoy the piece of music or do it in your free hours or maybe when you wind up your day. So there's strike a balance. Again, it all boils down to importance. It all boils down to priority and how well you are ready to strike that balance. How well, So probably again, it all comes to, you have to have that difficult conversation. And I would want to point it out here, Angela, sometimes picking up a self-help book, or listening to social media or listening to TED Talk, motivational pep talks won't help. We may need some help. We may be in that situation where we need to go to a professional help and seek that professional help. So if there is a need and if you're not able to do it on your own, please let go of that internal stigma of shame and reach out to professionals. They are trained in that way to help you out. Giving you that unconditional positive regard and that psychological safety wherein you can deep dive into yourself and go into those dark dungeons and find those gems.
Nice. Okay, yeah, definitely. I think there is no shame to actually ask for help because we are all novice when it comes to this mental well-being, right? This topic and subject has only made known and make mass awareness in the last few years. So if any of us feeling languishing, don't just rely on self-help book. Yes, do go talk to a coach, a psychotherapist, and yeah, maybe there's nothing big deal. Maybe after a few sessions of chat, you find that you can figure your way out. Oh, thank you for all this rich information. Yes, Mike.
I would like to go beyond this point of there's no shame involved. This is one way of looking at it. And in Singapore, I feel like, at least in the media, there is a stigma around getting professional help. But to my way of thinking, we all need help from time to time.
Yeah.
Being aware of your own limitations, your own challenges is very difficult. Yeah, it's very hard to see the problems that you are stuck in. Yeah. And sometimes everyone needs an external perspective to help them see what's going on. Yeah. And the professional is best placed to do that. Going to a professional who can shine a light on what the challenges are, what the fears are, or the trauma you are working with is triggering your current maladaptive responses is scary, can be scary. Yeah. So when I see someone going to a professional for help like this, to me it says they are actually strong, they are brave, and they are determined to grow as an individual. And I think this is very impressive. This is inspiring. It's the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I would say the people are like, oh, this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is from shame to, okay, this is okay. But I would say, actually, no, going to a professional is something everyone should be doing. And this is a sign of strength and positivity and growth. Yeah.
It requires a lot of courage and resilience in reaching out for help and seeking help. Yeah. Definitely, a lot of courage and resilience. Otherwise, internal emotional armoring, defenses, masking ourselves, numbing ourselves. And as Mike mentioned, there's a lot of fear, a lot of that feeling that I can't, and how do I open up to a stranger? But having been in both sides, I was there too, where there was dark dungeon, and I have been in that side of light too. And I'm sure Mike also knows both the sides, and Erin also knows both the sides. We all know both the sides. So we know how whole we feel when we are in the light side. So it is definitely worth giving a try. And the professionals, they are trained in a way. They are not going to shame you, embarrass you, or invoke those kind of feelings in you. They are going to help you overcome those. And definitely we need someone else. As Johari Window says, I'm sure Mike would know that, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know. So we need sometimes that external light to show us the way. So beautiful, beautiful way of explaining. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like I think Nav rightly pointed out, we all have been through the dark side, in a deep dark hole, and then also the light side. And you can kind of, when you've gone through that and you kind of feel the difference, you know that journey takes a lot of courage to just even stick out a hand out of that dark hole to ask for help. It is actually courageous. At the same time, there's a lot of emotions with like shame, guilt, especially I think in our culture, but we have to use our courage to overcome that shame and the guilt to reach out. So yeah, I think wonderful sharing today, but I also have some questions from the audience, because prior to this session, we asked our viewers to submit their questions to a pigeonhole. And there were a few questions that I'm just going to throw it out to the group. Feel free to unmute and take up the questions for discussion. So question 1 is that it's a mad rush every day having to deal with my bosses and then my kids. I find myself panicking a lot and I'm exhausted. How can I overcome this feeling? Panelists? Yes.
First of all, let go of the guilt that self-care is selfish. It is not. It is not. Even if it is a minute, even if it is that pause, which Erin was talking about, Mike was talking about, and stepping back, that few seconds are the moments of self-care. You can do that. You can sneak out those minutes, those few seconds out of your life, and give yourself that compassion, that love, and that freedom to be, just be. And I think that would help. That would help. I am totally with you. I'm not invalidating that there is no mad rush. There is mad rush. Definitely, we all are dealing with it. We all are dealing with it. We all are going through it. But definitely, mindfulness is the key. Taking a pause is the key. You have to step back, give yourself those 5 seconds, and then go on with life. That would definitely make a difference.
Yes, Erin?
Yes, thank you. I think that was really well said, Nav. And I really liked it when you said that we're all in this together. So I think there's always this tendency for us to feel very alone when we're going through our struggles, right? We tend to be very self-referential and say, "Oh, nobody understands me, and I'm all alone. I'm struggling in this alone." But I think when you mentioned compassion, it is precisely this. Understanding that this is a common human experience that we share that gives us the strength and the courage to say, okay, maybe I can do something about this. I can seek help with this. And I think just being able to also understand that every moment is a practice. Right. So when we talk about mindfulness or meditation, we think, oh, I have to have peace and solitude, and I have to be somewhere far away from the chaos of my world. But I think that the chaos of this world is the perfect place for us to practice. Right. And this is where we gain a lot of insight into what is our relationship with this stress, and how can we find our way instead of feeling like I'm stuck in this rut all the time. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Nav.
Mike, yeah.
Yeah, both good points. I would, yeah, I agree with both. But there's one thing in addition I might suggest, which is in a situation where you have a mad rush because of the kids or because of work, behind that, there's an idea that if I don't get this done, then something bad. And this is like a failure, and it'll mean something about me as a person. And like there's a whole raft of different reasons why there's this emotional compulsion to get it right and do the thing and make the cake and blah, blah, blah. Being aware of this and just kind of not holding on so tightly to this belief is really useful. Like particularly the mad rush with the kids. First of all, you have children, if they're a blessing. Yes, we may hate them at sometimes, but we also love them and they're a blessing. Being grateful and connecting with that gratitude for having a family, for having a job. And yes, it comes with stress, but like actually this is part of life just as much as the moments of happiness. And it can be much more fun if you're not so driven by the fears or the judgment or the shame or the expectations. And so it can be much more of a playful experience. It can actually be quite funny if, like particularly at work, people are running around like headless chooks. It's yeah, it can be very funny. I have a habit of making jokes at inappropriate moments just because I find it very funny, hysterical at times. People are so serious. Yes, like, well, we're not curing cancer. We're not, I don't know, saving the world from imminent death. But people can't, obviously just have to give up all of the being so heavy and serious, and let's just be lighter about it.
Yeah, so don't be so serious about life, right? Take it a bit lighter. Yeah. I think that's great. Sometimes I think we have this drive to be the perfectionist. We want to be 100% at work, 100% as a parent, 100% as a spouse. So I think there is no 300% people ever around, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of these expectations come from our hyper-connected world, and particularly social media. A lot of people are sharing stuff on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever, which are their highlight reels. And we compare it to our own internal experience of life. And for a lot of people, the things that they play in their head is actually a blooper reel, all of the things they got wrong. So when you compare the blooper reel versus the highlights of someone else, there's always a feeling of not being enough, not doing enough, not living up to expectations. And this is completely wrong. It's just a false perspective, just because of the selection of the information we choose to consume and the way we choose to consume it. So giving that up and being much more gentle with ourselves, I think is really important.
I really like what Mike shared about the social media, because I think even as like a wellness coach or a mindfulness coach, I'm not spared of that, because the wellness industry is like really booming. And when I'm using apps like Instagram, I see, coaches and teachers and therapists, and they portray themselves this way. Every day they'll be sending out some advice, and they would be, they would look a certain way even, right? So even in this capacity, when we know, oh, I'm aware of myself, we're still privy to, a lot of these that might invite certain reactions in us that, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, right? And it's really about turning the attention inwards and to being able to assess for ourselves in a very wise way. Is this helpful for me or not? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that,
I
Mike.
would add, Angela, I would like to add to it, whenever we are getting triggered, whether it is by social media comparisons or, in our work life, somebody's getting promotions, I'm not getting the promotion, all these things, these triggers are actually the portals which point to something which needs some healing. So we have to take it as a guiding point. What in me is getting triggered and why it's being getting triggered? Why am I getting affected by everything? Why am I comparing myself, putting myself out there like this, subject to, in this way, I'm not good enough, I'm not better than them. Why this comparison? So it points out to something that there is some point which could be the portal and the guiding light from where we can enter and do the healing. All the triggers are actually the portals. Yeah. I consider it that way. And if you can be triggerless, let me tell you, you will be limitless. Because there is no button to press. There is no push button.
That's true.
I love it. Love it. It's great.
Yeah, I think totally right. I mean, when I did the TED Talk on happiness, all the experts on the panel, on the happiness panel, says that there is no such thing that you have to live 24 hours, 365 days only feeling joy. There is no such a life. A colorful life, beautiful life encompasses all emotions, and I really attest to that as a researcher on emotions, right? And the important thing with emotions is not to ignore the negative emotions, but tune into it. What is it trying to tell us that we need? Because it's there to guide us about things that we want in life. Yeah, so happiness life, a good life doesn't mean there is no negative emotions, times of frustrations, times of stress and all that. So it's all part and parcel of a beautiful life, right? I think even this panel agrees to it. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, this is a really interesting idea that we should be happy all the time. I very much disagree with it. I've had experiences in my life of incredible stress and deep unhappiness. And one of them in particular, I had a thought going through it that I was unlikely to ever be this stressed ever again. So as an experience, I should experience it as fully as I could, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Once. I'm only going to be this way once. So really feel it. Don't try and push it away. Don't try and run away or pretend it's not happening or wish that I was somewhere else. Really go into it. And it's like you are the hero of your own movie. Yeah. The hero's life is not all happiness, because that's completely boring. You need the adventure. And that always comes with challenge. And the challenge is what leads to growth. So you should relish this. Relish all of the moments. Yeah.
That's why I always tell people, don't just live a happy life. Live a life with good stories to tell, right? The hero's journey in storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel, deal, and heal. So feel it, deal with it, and heal it. And then you would move from why me to yay me.
Oh, nice. Nav is full of wise quotes today. We should really make a series of this. Okay, I have another question. I have 3 questions in total from the audiences. So the second one, what can I do to help support the mental health of my family and peers? And I really relate to this question, right? Because I think we are practitioners, so we are kind of more aware of it. But when we come home, our families, our friends, having mental health issues, sometimes, we struggle between how to play the friend or family role versus the professional roles as well. So panelists, what do you all think?
I think the first thing is self-awareness. Be aware of what you are bringing to every situation, what effect you are having on others. Secondly is personal mastery, so that you can choose what you want to bring to a situation. You can choose the ideas, the emotions that you are going to present, the effect that you're going to have on those around you. And then awareness of others. So increase the awareness, the ability to really connect with those around you, your family, your colleagues, to see what's really going on, and the compassion to have an open heart, to hold them in your consideration, your love, and to look after them. And then wisdom around understanding, just like cause and effect. If you have this particular situation and then this is what you're choosing to do, then this is going to be the outcome. So working on ensuring that you are learning from the best people possible, the best way to live life. And whether this is seeing a professional or whether it is reading the right material or watching the right podcast, it's just making sure that you're kind of soaking your mind in wisdom, which is going to help you avoid the common traps and errors, and you can help others out of them as well. One approach.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes,
sorry. I think, and I agree with that. And I think families and peers play a special role in a person's life as opposed to a professional. It's needed that when we need to see a professional, we do. In my work as a coach, I've also taught teenagers as well. And sometimes we offer them resources on who to reach out to. And sometimes I do a little poll, right? Would you go to your family to talk about issues? Would you go to your peer? Would you go to a counselor? And counselors and family always come last. And I ask them why, and they say, oh, it's weird to talk to a stranger, or I can't let my family know because they're going to worry about me. So there is an issue, obviously, of a kind of a psychological safety here, where you don't feel safe sharing with these. So peers would play a specific role in this, where you feel like you're on equal ground, equal standing, and you're able to speak to each other, relate to each other differently. And in my work in mindfulness, I find what is most important for personal relationships is to be able to offer presence. So presence is the very first thing. And why is presence important? Because we are so distracted nowadays, right? How many times have we spoken to someone and you just know that this someone is so far away, thinking about their own stuff or distracted by their phones? So it's very hard for us to be present, but sometimes maybe this is all that we need from another person. We may not need advice. We may not need you to problem solve for me, but we just need you to be present and to be listened. A very important quality is to be very non-judgmental. And this is very subtle. When we're listening to someone, we have 1,001 thoughts going on about this person's story. We judge it, maybe not criticize it, but we would have a lot of conceptions about that, right? You should do this, you shouldn't do this. And this may or may not be helpful for that person. And a lot of times what is also lacking is a trust in that this person can eventually find their own way, right, with your presence and with your support. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely beautiful, Erin. I would like to add that don't try to fix anyone. No one is broken. No one. They may need your support. Just give them that psychological safety. Hold that space for them. Be compassionate. And just hold that space beautifully with unconditional positive regard, so that where they don't feel judged, they feel that safety, they feel that trust, and they can open up. They can share their pain with you. But if I show my judgment through microaggressions or micro movements, people who are in pain, they are very, inclined to that. They'll pick up those subtle cues. And they would know that you are not interested, you are not present, or you are judging them, or you are trying to fix them. And that would be strict no-no. So when it comes to systemic intervention, when it comes to family support, peer support, friend support, first of all, presence and no fixing. Don't go with the attitude that I need to fix it. You can't. You can support them with positivity and empathy, not even positivity. It's more of empathy, that space, that beautiful space you can hold for them.
This is so true. Oh gosh, I walk into this all the time. I'm an engineer and I'm a man, and I love fixing things. Oh my gosh, I love solving problems. I love rescuing. It's something I continuously work on. I'm going to have to be working on this till the day I die, I'm sure. It's so right now. Yeah.
Mike,
I think
I'm
we all
sure.
need to work on it.
Yes, we all do that. Let me tell me what you want to do. I'll help you. So, I'll fix it for you. Let's problem solve it. Let's brainstorm it. And rather, what we need to do is, I'm here for you. Let me
Yeah.
know how I can support you.
Yeah, totally. I'm an educator, so I'm guilty of that as well. I like to tell people how to do things. So yeah, it's really not easy. So I think the self-awareness and really, putting ourselves is at the end of the day, I think it's also our ego, right? Our ego to be that educator, to be that problem solver, put that aside and just present and listen. Yeah, it's not easy, but I think it takes a lot of practice. So yeah, people who are needing that and not really getting that from your family or peers, be also mindful and realize that they are not that self-aware as well. So forgive them. Yeah. I think for me, to the audience, I would like to actually let everyone know that when it comes to mental health and mental wellness, you're never alone. Many of us suffer from these problems in small or big ways. So the feeling of shame, guilt, loneliness is very, very common. But it's only when these emotions exist that the emotion of courage is calling out to come out as well, because courage can't come out when we don't have all these challenging emotions in us. So let your courage come out, go against the loneliness, shame, and guilt. Take the courage to fight for yourself and ask for help, reach out that hand. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. So I hope you all enjoyed today's episode of Autumn's Conversations. I know me and the panelists, we are totally having a fun time at this, talking about this topic. So do follow Autumn on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram for updates on the next webinar and receive tips on managing your financial, physical, and emotional health for your best future. So this is Angela, Mike, Erin, and Nav signing out. Thank you, everyone. Bye.